Over to you to get us underway then.
Shall we? Shall we get started with this pantomime horse of a podcast? And
You
I'm
get
going
in
to
the
say,
front.
yeah, yeah, that's right, yeah. I'm gonna say it one more time because last week the transcript said pantyhose podcast, and that's a very different thing, and we're definitely not doing that. So just to be absolutely clear, pantomime horse of a podcast. That's what we're doing. It might be a rambling shambles, but it's our rambling shambles, Kieron. So here we are for week 12.
Week
So
12, here we are. We've still got things to ramble on about.
yeah, we do. I've got quite a few. What's on your list for this week?
Well, I've had a ridiculously busy week of meeting lots of customers and potential customers. So I'm looking forward to sharing some of that and some of the
Mhm.
things we're working on. I want to talk a little bit about the product of the week, which I have touched on before, but I want to bring that back up again because I think we've got something that is really quite exciting. And we're obviously going to the Glastonbury of AI, Gartner data and analytics
Yeah.
next week. So I'm very excited. That's 3 days of kind of filling our head full of new exciting ideas, and no doubt the whole team back in base going, "Oh God,
Yeah,
what's
yeah,
he
yeah.
going to come back
Bracing
with?"
themselves. What are they going to do next? Nonsense. It's bad enough when we go to the pub for an evening and they don't like that. So 3 days at Gartner, they'll be proper cross with us.
Indeed, they
Uh,
will be. I look forward
get
to
our
it.
we need to get our picture taken at Gartner because the picture that's on the podcast was actually taken there last year.
That's
So
true. Yeah.
we need to get a better picture. So we'll work on that. We'll accost some random person like we did last year and get them to take a picture of us. So cool. Well, I want to
Yes.
talk about that. I've got a few other things.
Yeah. What's on your mind?
I've got a little bit about it's a sort of a personal story, but a sort of about the pace of change. A little bit about customers and a couple of customer type stories. I want to talk about safeguarding because that's back in the news again. I don't know if it's ever going to go away, is the honest
Yeah.
truth. But and linked to that will be cybersecurity and all the stuff around that that's going on. So let me start with my personal story, and I'll get that out of the way because it's a little bit emotional. My uncle died 2 weeks ago, and it was his funeral on Tuesday, and he was alive 1 month shy of 100 years.
Wow.
And
Amazing.
yeah, and I was thinking about. I mean, he served in the Second World War in a minesweeper in the Pacific, so he was a really interesting chap. And I was thinking about all the technology that he'd seen in his time. You know, everything from television starting to the moon landings to computers, mobile phones, and all of that stuff, and the kind of the pace of change. And he was quite geeky, really. So he even when he was must have been in his 50s, I guess. He had a BBC computer and a Sinclair ZX, which
Spectrum. Yeah.
some really old people will like us will remember.
You could
Um,
take the keys out of the ZX Spectrum and use them as an eraser.
could you?
Yeah,
Okay. Did
which is
you put
obviously
them?
a great use of a computer.
Brilliant. Yeah, yeah. Did you take them out and then put them back in the wrong order at school so
Good
that people
idea.
hit?
That's why I've always got typos in my typing.
Yeah, yeah. That's probably why I got kicked out of the computing classes for doing dumb stuff like that. But I was thinking about AI and the changes that we've seen in the last kind of 12 months, and just that whole kind of um, uh, apparently TV took 13 years to reach 50 million users. The internet took 4 years, and Facebook took 3.5 years. ChatGPT reached 100 million users in 2 months. I
Yeah,
was
yeah,
blown away by that stat. It's just like, oh my goodness. And now we've gone from an AI that could kind of write a decent email or response for you, all the way through to you can make agentic AI run parts of your business without a human ever
yeah.
touching it. So that just the pace of change is just absolutely, absolutely tremendous, and that's a good thing and a bad thing. And keeping people up to, as you know, there are certain people close to me who are AI deniers and are
Don't go
struggling
back
with
in
the
the
whole.
doghouse again, Neil. Stay.
So
You're out of it at the moment. Don't get yourself straight back in.
she's not here, so she's gone out shopping. So I'll be fine. She's gone to spend my money on plants because it's gardening time of year. Anyway, that was my little reflection. Was the pace of change is just incredible. It's not slowing down, and I'm really interested actually to see what kind of things come up at Gartner next week, and we'll no doubt talk about that in a little bit. But one of the sessions that I'm really keen to see is, I don't know if you've seen this on the list, but it's Maverick AI suggestions, completely random stuff, which will be really interested to see what they've made up. But that's all for next week. So yeah, there you go. That was the start of my week. It was nice to see family. It made me think about family, friends, my mortality, all of that stuff. Yeah. So really cheerful, but
sobering.
There's a change.
Very good. And you were talking earlier about the Magic Wand AI challenge that we're still seeing quite a lot of with our customers.
Yeah, that whole kind of I can't remember if it was you or somebody else said, the magic AI fallacy. It's like, could it just do this? I want toast, but could it cook me egg and chips? Or could it make me or as I put in one of my posts, the ham, egg and chip sandwich that you bought at Glasgow, which sounded great but tasted pure disappointment and was really
pretty mediocre. No, indeed, and people are still doing the well, surely AI can just do that. Yeah. Surely it can go find the data it needs and sort out the thing to do this, and that's AI, isn't it? And it can in some extent, but not accurately. That's the challenge. Anything time you're kind of just searching the internet or searching your entire SharePoint folder in Copilot 365 ways, it's just very, very difficult to do that in an accurate way, arguably impossible.
Like that customer, it's like, well, can't it see into this? We've created some child folders, and it can't see those data. Well, of course, you never told it to. It was specifically told to go and do this thing, and you've done something else and just assumed that it's just magically. It's not psychic. It's not magic. No. It's not human. So
exactly, it needs the data, and it needs to know where the data is. I had sorry, go on.
I was just going to say that comes back to the whole piece about being very careful how you instruct it and making sure that you give it the right information in order to do the job. And if you don't, then don't be surprised or disappointed when it doesn't deliver your egg sandwich.
Yeah, I had a conversation last week. In fact, this was with some housing association, prospective customer, hopefully. Well, they are a prospective customer, and hopefully they'll be a customer. I'm not hoping they're a prospective customer, they definitely are. As is everybody in housing. Welcome, everyone in housing. Thank you for listening. But it's very similar kind of egg on. I like my toast with egg. So I was showing them knowledge flow. We talked about policy and a tenant inquiry manager that can handle all of those inquiries agentically if you want, i.e. without you can get involved if you want. We talked about the repairs assistant and how that can help you with keeping the pricing down and sorting out the admin and hopefully triaging to get the right repairs done. We showed them all of these things, and then towards the end I showed them the data capabilities and was talking about how you can put in multiple Excel spreadsheets, and now you can look across your repairs and your assets and your tenant IDs and start to kind of see what's going on in that together. And then, so he said, well, can I do that on role-based access? Because it's important that we don't just give that to everybody, that they can access any of our data. And I said, well, no, you wouldn't. We can lock down the whole assistant to only. He said, no, but we want some people to see some answers and some to see other. And that became the big thing. It's like, well, I'm not sure it's for us because it's important to us. And he's like, well, don't do that bit with it then.
Yeah.
Or just do the bit where you give it access to people. Or there are indeed other workarounds, but it's sort of annoying. I think that because he was an IT guy, and I think he came to that meeting, the whole tone of everything he asked me was, how do I put this into the long grass and pour cold water all over it at the same time?
Yeah, we've seen that so many times, not just with IT managers, but also business managers and senior managers, where they don't really want to do it. It's like, oh, well, it can't put something in cell C37 in green writing on a pink background.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it can now. So be careful what you wish for. So it won't be, or if it is that what that guy was asking for, well, it won't be long before it can do those kind of things. So, but yeah, we've seen that so many times, haven't we? People just saying, actually, I want it to do this ridiculous thing. But it's a bit like, I'm going to be careful what I say now, but it's a bit like certain politicians who kind of drive down one particular argument and to clear everything else out because they don't want to answer the question in front of them, and they want to. And the yes minister and yes prime minister stuff of yes. Well, I think the question you really should be asking is,
Yeah,
can I
indeed.
put
Yeah.
the pig writing in cell 37B?
Yeah, no, it's a huge challenge and very frustrating. And then we also got up against again usual. Well, Copilot can do that, which comes from a place of ignorance. I'm more and more convinced. It's like, well, I've seen some magic with Copilot and did a thing for me, and I could see your stuff, and I'm therefore saying it's the same, and
Yeah,
not engaging at all with actually what knowledge flow can do that is way beyond what Copilot could even dream of.
yeah.
Interesting. Matt, our one of our audience, I guess that would be one of.
Yeah, that's right. He's either an audience or he's not.
Yeah, indeed, yeah, a prospective audience. But he was talking about someone challenged him again as usual on Copilot could do that, and his point was Copilot is your general tool to do stuff, summarize your emails, whatever you want to do with it. Knowledge flow is about workflow automation, and Copilot can't come close. And if you talk about, which we might talk about in product of the week, the smart target writer for colleges, is that, I mean, okay, can't even begin to imagine doing that with Copilot. You wouldn't be able to. And so that the kind of things that we can do that are just way beyond the capabilities of it, and just a bit annoying when it comes up. And I'm a bit jaded after a busy week, so yeah, I'm on the grumpy side of life today.
Well, at least there's only one of us, because last week we were both jaded and tired and grumpy because we were both hungover, is the honest truth. So yeah. And I'm not this week, so that's good. But just come on the Copilot thing. I know you complain about LinkedIn. Because the algorithms don't serve stuff up, and I write stuff and you don't see it, for example. Yeah. So I actually wrote a piece on the I wrote an article on Copilot is the default answer, and actually, if it's the default go-to AI for any organization and it's not doing the job you want it to do, complaining about it doesn't help. Because you're just seen as a twiner and a moaner and actually a problem in the business. But if you could do something simple, like take a workflow or a piece of work that you know takes time and run a side-by-side comparison between Copilot and knowledge flow, and let's just take the Excel example, put these 4 spreadsheets in, create a database, and then be able to natural language query across those 4 spreadsheets. You can't do that in Copilot. And or somebody may be able to, but your average person, you definitely couldn't. And so being able to create measured examples, so saying this thing takes me half an hour if using Copilot, and I have to spend another 20 minutes rewriting it, whereas this thing takes me 5 minutes in knowledge flow and it's good to go straight out the door. That's empirical evidence that you can then take to your company or to your boss or to your IT department and say, yeah, I get why I get it. Copilot, you've spent money on it. It's costing us licenses. We've spent that. We need to use it. And it's good for these things. But this particular workflow, this particular task, this particular job that I have to do is actually, if I do it using this tool, I save a lot more time. So please, can I have this tool for this specific piece of work?
Go with the solution as opposed to the moan. Yeah, nice.
Yeah. Pick a job and just measure the time it takes and the buggerance factor of not having good quality outputs. Yeah. And that's why people don't use it, isn't it? I mean, we see that time and time again, and people actually moving Copilot licenses around organizations to try and get people to actually use it because they're just not.
And I saw Microsoft.
Because they don't have it.
Yeah, Microsoft have there was a deleted tweet, or I think it was who knows if it was a tweet or a post from somewhere from one of their senior guys saying we are actively removing Copilot from the places where it's not being used, because they had it on everything, but they've sort of, as you know, they've got a lot of flack from people of like Copilot's popping up. It's like the old Clippy offering to write your letter for you. But yeah, so they're doing that again. They've gone back to that, but they're now removing it, apparently. But it got deleted, that post, because it obviously doesn't look good for Microsoft to be accepting failure.
But he's right, and I found it really. I mean, I've tried using it again this week just to test a couple of things. I thought I'd eat my own dog food and try it, and it just comes up with stuff that's unhelpful, and it just stops halfway through. So, real simple example: the transcripts for this podcast.
Oh, yeah.
They all come with your name, my name, and a timestamp, and that's, it's really annoying to read. So can you just remove the timestamps from this? And it literally goes halfway through and then it just gives up. It says, I'm done. And it's like, well, what about all these other ones? It just really frustrating. I tried it twice because I thought I must have done something wrong the first time, but it just didn't work. So
Did you try
yeah,
knowledge flow afterwards?
yeah, of course it did.
No doubt did it all instantly.
Yeah, so well, it took it's what 40 minutes and it just goes through and it just says thinking, and it probably takes a minute to run through or something, but it's done. It's just like, yeah, it just makes it easy. So yeah, really that, and I get why people would be, if you've only got Copilot as your AI default and you're being forced to use it, I could see why you're an AI denier, because I'd be frustrated with it too.
Yeah.
But then people just go to shadow AI, don't they? They just like they'll pay $20 a month for a Claude license because actually it makes them look good and it makes them stand out for the crowd. And $20 is nothing. What's that? 4 coffees or 3 coffees, depending on where you buy your coffee, of course. And actually, if it's going to give me an advantage at work, then crikey, why wouldn't you? And if it's going to save you time, but then you're back into losing your data and client security and personal identifiable information and all of that safeguarding stuff, which is really, really challenging. So the shadow AI problem isn't going to go away for those organizations that don't allow people to use tools that actually help them do their jobs, I think.
Interesting. And safeguarding you touched on there. That's what you wanted to talk about as well, didn't you? What have you seen on that this week?
Well, as you know, my Every Child Matters Day safeguarding is deeply ingrained after working with the fabulous Jeanette Pugh, who was so hot on that stuff, and yeah, really interesting. But I saw this week that Meta have just lost a case in New Mexico around safeguarding and making their tools addictive for children and young people. And of course they're fighting it, but there's going to be more and more of this stuff. I didn't realize that Google and a company called Character AI had settled out of court in January for undisclosed sums, but you can only assume it's multi-millions, for families suing them around things like suicide of young people, where they'd used AI to enable them to take their own lives, or just brought them out, whatever words I need to be careful using the language, of course, but where AI was involved and implicated, and certainly the families feel AI was responsible. So that whole safeguarding piece, it's not going to go away anytime soon. And I'll put in the post a piece that I got from I actually asked Nate B. Johns, shout out to Nate, if I could actually use his stuff verbatim, and he kindly agreed. On parents, you need to talk to your children about using AI, and you should not be using AI for personal relationships, because it's a bloody machine and it doesn't understand you. And you might, if you don't really understand it, then you might think it understands you, but it really doesn't. It's just responding to the inputs that you put in.
Yeah, exactly.
And progressively ratcheting that up, and to the point where it can become super problematic. So I would highly recommend any parent who is listening, if you've got any thoughts about safeguarding with relation to AI, then please read the post from Nate, because it is really, really good. So yeah, safeguarding, that's not going to go away anytime soon. Neither is the whole cybersecurity stuff, and I'm kind of moving towards the Glastonbury of AI next week as we prep for the Gartner conference. But I don't know about you, but I've been through the agenda for the 3 days, and I've ticked about 400 sessions.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
And there's a bunch of them on cybersecurity and AI, and it made me think, because actually most of the people who go to Gartner are big organizations or work for big organizations, and actually, as we've discussed before, it's really difficult, because if you're a small organization, you don't have a lot of expertise, you don't have a lot of money, or you don't have whatever, you don't have time. What should smaller organizations do about about this stuff, because you just take the whole mythos thing. You know, they made it available to 40 organizations, including governments, the big tech companies, and JP Morgan. But actually, if you are yeah, Joe Bloggs or Mrs. Miggins in Bolsover High School, what are you going to get? How do you do it? So really interesting. And also interesting this week that the National Cybersecurity Centre were on Radio 4, and I always think if it's on the 8:10 Radio 4 slot, then it's got to be important. When they were talking about using passkeys rather than
Yes. Yeah, I heard
passwords,
that. I heard that yesterday. They were talking about that, weren't
um,
they? Mm.
yeah, and they were really pushing. They were really pushing that concept of passwords no longer being secure enough, and that whole technology, which if you don't understand it, it's important to understand, because passkeys should be used because there's a public part to the key and there's a private part, and the private part stays on the device. So even if anybody finds out what the public part is, it doesn't matter because you can't connect the two. So really powerful. The other thing, which I think will come up at Gartner, but I've seen some other stuff about it, is what happens when quantum computing comes, and the whole super speed of cracking mathematical problems will. So there'll have to be quantum preparations for quantum cyber, as I think the latest phraseology is called.
Yeah.
So really, a whole load of stuff around that, which I think is going to be both fascinating and terrifying in equal measure. So
No doubt.
I'm looking forward to being terrified next week on that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And I think, I mean, I remember from Gartner last time we went, and sort of you learn things. It's kind of like you don't know what you don't know until you kind of go into stuff. And it's
Yeah.
all, I love Gartner. It's the very best of all the events that I go to for sure. But it's still got the problem of you are choosing a session largely based on a title.
Yeah.
And they're obviously trying to do a little bit of encouragement and be descriptive, but you never really know what you're in. And it's that kind of like, oh, should I be here or not? The wonderful thing with Gartner, as you know, is that because they run it on an app and live stream everything, you can take your headphones and be sat in one, listening to another one and watching the slides from that other one.
Yeah.
There's a really good setup because they don't do it's not a lot of video, so that's really expensive and difficult to live stream and have it all video. They literally just have the slides and the talk track, so you can follow along perfectly well. So at least it helps you when you're there. So it's going to be a bit like cruising through TV channels, perhaps, where you go, like, not that one, not that one. Right. Lock in on the ones you want.
I think it's a really cool feature, and actually, others should definitely learn from it, because if you go to a session, it's at the Excel Centre, and anybody who's ever been to the Excel Centre in London knows it's absolutely massive. So if you're in a talk that actually isn't very interesting after the first 5 minutes, to get to the other talk you want to, it's like a 15-minute walk. So you've missed it. It's pointless. But actually being able to just switch on and listen is really cool. So
maybe we should take multiple setups and we could sit in the pub. Sit outside in the pub and just watch whatever we're tuned in on.
Now you're talking. We just have a bank of screens and we'll
exactly. You could be watching 4 or 5 and just tune in on the one that's interesting. You would probably end up very drunk very quickly though, because you'd be just like watching it, drinking, and then
and super confused, wouldn't you? So you'd be like, which one am I listening to?
Which one am I in? So, I once had a film, like, talk about super confusing, that model, it'll amuse you. I was watching a film with a bunch of people years ago, this was, and I went out to go and get a drink or whatever I was doing, have a wee or whatever. And when I came back in, I sat back down and we were all still watching the film and watching the film. And then I was like, after about 20 minutes, I said to one of them, "Have you changed the film?" And they were like, "Oh yeah, when you were out, we switched." And I was doing the thing of trying to piece together, how does this plot? I just thought it was, a new family was being introduced or whatever. So I've kind of created a different film in my head. That's how innovation works, I always think, is crashing together ideas that don't necessarily belong together and coming up with something else. So I could have written a new film just by assuming it was the same one and creating different plot lines in my head.
Excellent. Well, we should crash some Gartner presentations together to create some new intellectual property from them. Although there's probably some clause in our contract where you can't do that.
I am
So,
sure that there will be.
so what sessions have you? What other sessions have you got lined up? I've got a few.
Oh, I've got hundreds of them. The thing that I touched on it last week, I'm really interested right now in the testing and explainability part of
Mm-hmm.
AI. So observability is what it's called, that world. And in the RAG pipeline, it's more than simply check the answer against fact, because as we said last time, you can't really do that. It's more like an essay. You got to mark it more like an essay. But also you have to expose each step of the process so that you can observe it. How, what cosine similarity search did it use? What chunks did it bring back from the vector database? And then how did it rank those and prioritize those, et cetera, all the way through. And that's how you can kind of really understand if things aren't right, particularly where it's gone wrong. So I'm really interested. I know it's really geeky, and it amazes me that when I think about if it said 5 years ago you're going to be really excited about data and analytics, I'd have gone what? But
That's
that
right.
I'm really interested to hear what's the latest in that. And then the other areas is natural language querying, which is the thing that we're really into now, which is this, as you know, stitching together Excel or whatever, APIing data directly from Salesforce, and using natural language to query that. It is fraught with difficulty, that area, largely because we as humans aren't very good at understanding how to write without ambiguity, and particularly when that's turning it into SQL deterministic search, really, or deterministic answers. That's really problematic to make sure that you've asked crisply what you really want to know. Otherwise, you get an answer and it might not be what you really thought you were asking. So, I'm really keen to understand how people are cracking that if they are, because
Yeah,
that's the stuff of a lot of people with databases that are putting AI on top of it and claiming to be an AI company.
yeah,
That's where they're all falling down, and why the feedback I hear from those is it's not very good, and it will be because of that problem.
yeah.
And we're cracking through a bit of it with knowledge flow, but I'm sure there's lots and lots to learn.
Yeah.
So I'm very keen. Those are the two big themes for me this year. But then, of course, you don't know what you don't know. So I'm looking forward to just being blown away by stuff, and no doubt have a couple of sessions I'm snoozing through, wishing I hadn't gone to.
That's right. Yeah, and there's other ones where you go, crikey, that's brilliant. And yeah, I've got a couple of themes really that I've picked. Security is one of my themes. The
Yeah.
second one is around agentic, and lots of talk about agentic. It might
Mm.
feel like old news. It's so very 2025, isn't it? But there's the whole piece about um, automated business, and we've touched on this in procurement, and procurement being one of the most obvious places where
Yeah.
actually humans in the loop is can be a real challenge. So I'm interested to see about that, because there is a session on that. But also, I come back to my point about the big business versus SMEs, and but again, I don't know what they'll say about that, but I think the fact that a small team, if you read the AI wires and listen to stuff, you'll see there's lots of sort of 3, 5, 10 person teams, cracking through stuff because they can punch right above their weight because they're using the tools. And I was thinking about this in terms of some of our how should we say, more challenging prospective customers, and just challenging them with questions like, if you decide not to go ahead with the AI, that's fine. But if a competitor, your top competitor, chooses to and has a 6 month advantage,
Yeah.
where do you think that'll leave you? What do you
Yeah.
think the challenges will be? What do you think the problems will be? And I think we should be more what's described as the challenges there. We should do more in that kind of pushing back on tricksy questions, uh, and then you kind of get into the whole, well, actually, if you increase the productivity, if your team uses AI to halve the amount of hours that they need in order to complete the task, do you reward them, or do you just cut their hours in half? So
Yeah,
there's some
indeed.
really ethical things that we need to think about. The ethics of AI is one of the subjects for next week.
Yeah.
So yeah, interested to see what they talk about on that. And then the final one linked to the whole kind of agentic and big business versus small business is this return on investment.
Yes.
There was something again on Radio 4 this morning. I don't just listen to Radio 4 because, as you always say, if you just listen to a Radio 4, you'd be very clever but very boring.
Indeed.
So I do listen to other things. But it was an investment. I think it might have been from one of the big pension providers talking about diversifying their AI investments as companies are moving from investment-based funding to debt-based funding. And if you've got debt-based funding to create your new data centers, etc., then that money obviously has to be paid back at some point in time. So therefore, you need to start generating revenues in order to make those debt repayments. And so there's some really interesting stuff about return on investment. And I was thinking about it from the kind of companies and organizations that we deal with that aren't in those kind of mega billions-dollar areas. We're dealing with mainly with SMEs and public sector organizations. And for them, the ROI question is really quite tricky. And, just being able to do things faster isn't a really good return on investment metric. But somebody posed the question to me, which I thought was fascinating, which is, if you cancelled all your AI subscriptions today, would your business notice tomorrow? And I thought that is a great question, because I know if I switched off mine, I'd be really grumpy.
Definitely. Imagine having to go back to write every word of a paragraph again and spending like 2 hours over half a page.
Worrying about getting the words or checking the facts, and just that whole. Just the bid writer thing. I've got a story about bid writer. I'll tell you in a sec. But yeah, that whole kind of thing. If you switched it off, would anybody notice? And actually, crikey. And I think that's a really come back to the shadow AI point that I made earlier. People are using it in organisations, and actually they would definitely, if you actually lock them down and ban them from doing it. And we also talked about, didn't we, the social workers who refused to go and work for the councils where they didn't have the right AI tools. I'm not joining you if you're not using that. Really interesting
exactly.
stuff.
And on the how do you use that time, because I'm very conscious that we can show people time savings, estimated time savings, and most of our tools create a huge amount of sort of time saving, but it's not real time you're doing much. You can't cache that, really, is what I'm getting at. And interestingly, the social work podcast that I joined and was on a panel for, one of the questions from them was what happens when the director of children's services or whatever can decide that you've now got capacity to take on another 5 cases? Is that okay? And they're obviously coming at it from it's not okay. I gave an honest answer to it, as I think I've touched on before, which is that it's hard, isn't it? That's for your own organization to work out. It's kind of AI is making you potentially have a higher quality time with the cases that you have to look after. But if you can look after another 5 now, maybe you should, or maybe you should not, and you should just spend that time in better quality conversations and not just make it all shallow. But it's going to be tricky. I think that will be a tricky one.
I know that you want to talk about a different product of the week, but I want to come back to something linked to productivity, which is BidWriter. And I've already mentioned before how much time it saved me, but I was approached this week, really interesting conversation. Could a consortia of, I'm going to say 7 organizations come together, use knowledge flow in order to write a £1 billion bid? And I was like, that's really interesting. We've not done it that way. But if you just set up 7 different assistants and possibly an 8th for things, for general documents, but in each assistant, you had the company's technical documentation, their marketing material, things like their insurance certificates, all of that stuff. And then you could, using the fabulous new tools that Donald has created just this week, stick all of those into Knowledge Flow, press the button, and it will do the very first pass within 10 minutes.
Yeah,
and it just saves so much time. But we've never done it with a consortia before, and I just thought it was a really interesting concept because the real challenge, as you know from our previous lives, consortia bit is getting the bloody information out of people, getting them to check stuff,
absolutely.
contacting
Yeah,
them. You waste so much time and effort. And actually, if you can give them all a first pass of the document within 2 days of receiving it, then
yeah,
you can not only make sure that it's polished to within an inch of its life, ready to go, and save a lot of time. How many more could you knock out? And actually, for consortia who are working together on a regular basis, or indeed a new consortia, is bringing them together and actually creating a really clever way of writing the bids in which is accurate, up to date, and just compelling. I think is really exciting. So we've got a first conversation about it next week. So I'm super excited about that.
nice.
And yeah, I think it could be a new area for us to experiment with.
Yeah, indeed. And you could, in theory, put all those documents in a single RAG index, assuming because
Yeah, you could.
no one would be able to get at the document if you didn't want people to see. If you didn't want, if they were a bit competitive, hopefully they're not too competitive in one consortia, but then you could still lock the RAG out so they can only get the answers. And
Yeah.
it's not going to be secret because you can ask any question you want and it will give you the answer, but it does stop you kind of stealing the whole deck and putting it in your stuff. So yeah, but really
Well,
good use case.
assuming the consortia they want to work together, they're going to be collaborating. You can't
You'd
collaborate
hope
if you
so.
don't share stuff.
No,
So
indeed, yeah,
yeah,
you'd hope so. That's a really good idea. And yeah, well, let's talk about the agentic bid writer, which last week we touched on, and now it's a live product that I was demoing it this week, much to Donald's horror, when I
I know.
told him
I did the
he,
same.
he was talking about it, and I said, "Oh yeah, I've got a demo in 10 minutes of that." He's like, "What?" He called me straight afterwards. He said, "Right, you got to know about this, know about that." I was like, Donald, don't worry about it. I'm not going to be lying to them. I'm telling them this is literally hot off the press, and we've got a load of ironing out of bugs to do. But yeah, it's really good. And
Yeah,
here's the use case, which the CEO of the organization I was talking to was like, you just saw his eyes kind of looking at the screen and was when I said, because they do a load of public sector work, this company, and so it's forever everything's tendered and it's loads of tenders coming in and you got to decide what to go for and what not to go for and all that stuff. But I was like, well, the first time you even saw the opportunity, you'd already have a bid that was 80% done. How about that? And that's basically what we could do with it. Is it runs straight through on anything new, shove it into it, let it answer it, it could give you also the summary of whether or not this is for you, but it could have also done
yeah.
all of it, so you can have a quick look and decide immediately with a almost complete written
Yeah.
thing in front of you.
Did you
That
show
is,
him the scores and the gap analysis?
I
I demoed online. I showed them the score and I was like, look, they've scored this one at 2.5. And if you go to the gap analysis, it says you haven't in the provided documentation, you don't have enough on the financial savings, so you need to include a
nice.
case study. And it was just brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Oh, that
So
is cool. No,
very
I didn't
clever.
show him that. That is very cool indeed. Yeah, it's
No,
the future.
that's like you going to a bloody housing conference and not showing a picture of the mold.
Our audience won't want to hear that story again. I think there's enough stories of my incompetence in the world. The no, I mean, and the future of procurement is to go back to your point about agentic businesses. It's the one area that I think is so rife. It is the one thing that is all about reviewing words and making judgments on stuff and trying to second guess and put your best foot forward and all that stuff. AI is better at it than any human being, actually. And having the whole thing running as a kind of end to end, my automated procurement AI decides my spec, sends it to yours answers it and gets it back. And, within 20 minutes of me needing a new thing, I've got the best one there is. That's like, I mean, that'd be amazing, wouldn't it? Why, who would not want that rather than 6 month or six
Uh,
week procurement exercise?
I'll tell you who wouldn't want that.
Yeah. Yeah. Quite,
People who work in procurement.
quite a few procurement professionals would not be happy.
That's right. I can think of a few right now.
Indeed. Well, and interestingly, the kind of games you would play, the first thought I've had when I've sort of really spent a little bit of thought time over a beer, thinking about that is, if you had an agentic answerer, and you knew it was being hit by AI saying, other AI tools that were going to evaluate it, then there are a lot of games you could play to not necessarily be truthful. So I think there's still room for people in there to do something along the way. So it's not entirely, the whole procurement industry hasn't been entirely wiped out just yet.
No, it'll be some time before that happens.
Indeed, and there was the article I was reading about the job apocalypse, that was an FT article which we touched on last week, was interestingly talking about anywhere where there's a regulated sector. This was in healthcare and saying it's all very well that AI can read your X-ray, and I've read some other stuff this week about AI picking up early cancer way better than anybody can, any human, and indeed picking stuff up that humans didn't. Retrospectively, they've shown it. This did turn out to be it. What would you make of that thing? But anyway, the point is, you at the moment in sort of our regulated sectors, you need a professional to have signed off stuff, agreed stuff, and then laws the same. So it might be very, very slow to kind of completely take over anywhere where you have a need for a proper person, a registered practitioner or whatever. Then I suspect it's going to be a long time before the regulation allows AI to do those things.
Any regulated industry. So that again, the demise of things like lawyers, I can see admin tasks going, but not the kind of domain knowledge and expertise and all of that stuff. That's going to take quite a little. Anybody who says there's going to be no lawyers in 2030 doesn't really know what they're talking about.
No, indeed. I think we've got a long time to go before that. Although if you follow Richard Suskind's book on which we've talked about before, How to Think About AI, he was talking about law and why do we assume that a court is a physical location?
Yep.
Why are we getting everybody to come together in a physical place to have? And I remember talking to a barrister about this, and I remember him saying tomorrow morning he has to go to Brighton to go there to be in court, as will the defence and as will the judge and as will everyone else, to say we need adjournment for 6 weeks.
Yeah,
and literally all going into court to do that, and because it has to be done in that setting. So the amount of stuff that is just mad, and you could do a load of it online, frankly. It don't need to be, and it doesn't even need to be synchronous. Why can't I present my defence now?
You should do that via email, never mind.
Exactly. You can look at it whenever you like. I'll do my defence, I'll do my prosecution bit, and then leave someone else to kind of the judge to make the judgment. Don't need to be.
I'm not sure we should be judging on judges or lawyers, because neither of us are very qualified. Let's just leave it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I'm just here to ask the questions. The joy of being that's my consulting career. Is brilliant. You always get to ask the questions, and you don't have to answer so many.
Yeah.
We should bring to end. I've got to go to David Attenborough's 100th birthday picnic. I say, so David, if you're listening, I look forward to possibly seeing you. I'm not sure he even knows it's happening, let alone will be there. But it is not. It's at my son's school, which is probably 100 meters from David Attenborough's house. So there is a possibility he might shuffle in.
There's a possibility he might come round.
He may well. Penny has security sitting outside his house when he's there in a car all the time. I don't often walk down that road, but when he's in,
it's a good job, because if you're like stalking. I remember you stalking Michael Eavis at Glastonbury, and you used to wear a Michael Eavis t-shirt, and you got a picture of him sat next to me. We should get that out. You should send that to me, and we'll post it up.
It'd be great photograph.
So I expect a picture of you with David Attenborough by 5 o'clock with an egg sandwich.
Fantastic. Well, I shall see if I can get one.
Excellent. Well, on that note, fella, you have a great weekend, and I will see you at the Glastonbury of AI, bright and breezy, on Monday morning. I'm assuming we're going to do the cheaty thing and go to the second entrance where the queues are much slighter.
Don't tell our audience. We don't want to create a stampede.
Correct. Yeah. We don't want to rush.
No, I will definitely be there, and I'll aim to get there relatively early so I can get checked in and make sure we're inside, ready for the keynote kickoff, because that is always the highest value, because it gives you a bit of a flavour of all of what's going to come up. I look forward to it.
All right, fella. I'll see you in London on Monday morning. Until
Nice
then,
one. Look
have a
forward
good
to it.
weekend. Cheers.
See you.
Bye.
Bye bye.